Welcome back to Unplug with Mel. I'm your host, Mel Mosier. I am so excited to have you here for another inspiring episode. And if you're tuning in on the double drop in honor of my 40th birthday, thank you. Today's guest is Becky Ackerman, who shares her deeply personal and empowering story about her journey through infertility. After facing countless obstacles and moments of doubt, Becky's resilience, hope, determination, and trusting who she is and her body ultimately led her to success on the path to parenthood. In this episode, we explore the lessons Becky learned along the way, how she became a mindfulness fertility coach, how patience, love, grit helped her along some of the life's toughest challenges. Her story will resonate with anyone who has faced adversity and come out stronger on the other side. There is a warning in this because we do talk about women's anatomy as well as miscarriages. So if this is a difficult conversation for you to listen to, again, you can pause and come back when you're ready, or simply go click another episode that might not be so sensitive for you. Let's settle in for this heartfelt conversation about overcoming struggles and embracing the power of hope with Becky Ackerman. Let's get started. Welcome, Becky Ackerman, to Unplug with Mel. I'm glad we got to sit down and do this today. And you just look perfect behind there and everything. So we briefly met through social media. And you have a great story to tell about infertility and parenthood and all that stuff that it's your journey to share with the audience. And so I'm so glad that you get to, you're on my podcast. So I'm really glad. I'll let
thank you for having
introduce yourself
Sure.
To our guest to tell your story to inspire infinite growth. So I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here to chat about this. So I am a fertility coach, and I, like most fertility coaches that you will find, came to this through my own experience. Many years ago, after my husband and I had been married for a few years, we decided, as lots of couples do, that, okay, it's time to have a baby now. And also, as most couples do, we assumed it would be really easy and that within a year we would be parents. And then we slowly realized that that was, in fact, not the way it was going to go for us. I at the time was a personal trainer and a fitness instructor, and I was super healthy, and I was exercising and eating right and all that stuff. And I was like, this is going to be really, really easy for me. And after probably 4 months, when I still wasn't pregnant, I really started to question what was going on. And, you could maybe say there was a little bit of intuition there, but mostly I think it was just impatience and lack of education about what the situation really is. So, I was seeing a doctor, and she was like, there's nothing to do. But once we got to 9 months, I'm not really sure what it was that convinced her that, okay, let's not wait anymore. Normally they make you wait a year, but at 9 months, she said, okay. So we ran all the blood work, and all the blood work came back just fine. But then she sent me in for a hysterosalpingogram, which, for anybody who doesn't know, is an imaging test where they inject dye into your uterus to look at the shape of your uterus, to look at your fallopian tubes, and to see if they're open. If the dye spills out into your abdominal cavity like it's supposed to, then things are good. And it showed that on one side, I was mostly blocked. But my doctor said, well, you have one good tube, and I wouldn't want to do surgery because surgery brings lots of risks of scar tissue and making the problem worse. And, I was, like I said, not super well educated about any of this. And I thought, well, that sounds reasonable. Okay. And so we went on to keep trying. Uh, at about a year, I would say it was, she got frustrated with me. And I was in to see her for something else because I was having some other issues at the time that were unrelated, but I was seeing her a lot. And she said, she gave me a referral and said, I don't want to see you again until you're pregnant, which is a really amazing thing for a doctor to say to somebody who's
For
having
real.
trouble. Um,
Right.
it's like, well, you're supposed to be helping me here. I'm not supposed to be a burden to you. This is your job. But I went to the referral and I walked in. It was a reproductive specialist, and the receptionist handed me a welcome packet with menopause and parenting magazines in it. And that was there were a lot of low points on this journey, I'll be honest, but that was probably the first really low point where I was shell shocked. I couldn't even believe, how is this supposed to help me in any way? And I contemplated just walking out of the office. But I thought, okay, I can be a big girl about this. I'm already here. I will go see her. I did. I hated her. I never went back. Um, at that point, a friend gave me a recommendation for a gynecologist, just a gynecologist, not an OB or anything. But she said he's really, really nice, and you should go see him. And he was really, really nice. And he wanted to help. He didn't really have a lot of tools available, but we did a couple months of medicated cycles with Clomid and letrozole. But he didn't monitor it, so we didn't know if anything was happening in my body. We just knew at the end of the day that I wasn't getting pregnant. So after a few months of that, he gave me another name. And I'll just say, because this sounds like it's moving along, but at this point, um, things we were almost 2.5 years in, because my husband was traveling a lot for work. I was busy, sort of secretly in the back of my head. I kept thinking, well, this is the month. I'm really just going to get pregnant this month, and then I don't need it. So, things sort of got put off, and time passes. But so I went to the new reproductive endocrinologist, who was really amazing. And he looked at all my test results and he said, okay, these are a little bit old at this point. So we're going to do it all again. And the blood work was still great. But the next hysterosalpingogram again came back blocked on one side. And he said, we have to do surgery. I can't believe somebody told you not to, because there's nothing else to do at this point other than to find out what the problem actually is. So I went in for surgery, and turns out he found a lot of stuff. He found a huge fibroid that we had no idea was there, and he found tons of endometriosis, um, like everywhere. And that was a really big surprise because I'd never had a single symptom. When you think about painful periods and that kind of thing, nothing at all. Um, and so he cleaned all that stuff out, but he also found that my left fallopian tube was filled with fluid, most likely as a result of the endometriosis, because scarring and all that can cause fluid in there. And he wanted to take it out. So he came out mid-surgery to ask my husband if he could take it out. And before surgery, I had actually given my husband instructions to please not let him remove anything, because I didn't really know what we might be looking at. And I just, in my mind, was like, I don't want to wake up having had a hysterectomy. Like, if he finds I have uterine cancer, okay, you can wheel me right back in, but you have to wake me up to tell me this before you take it out. Um, and so my husband told him no, and he said, okay, fine. So he drained it and he pinned it open, but was very upfront about the fact that that was a temporary solution. Uh, so he did say, though, everything's open now, everything's good. So go spend some time trying. And after a couple months, if nothing has happened, come back and we'll talk. So about 3 months went by, nothing happened. We came back and he said, all right, let's try some IUIs, some intrauterine insemination. And we did the first round. I ovulated spontaneously before the trigger shot. So, before the day of the insemination, and we couldn't because we'd already missed our moment. And then in the middle of the second round, I came in mid cycle for a monitoring appointment, and he was looking at the ultrasound, and he's moving the wand around, and he's like trying to figure something out. Oh, your tube has filled back up again. So that was 7 months after the surgery. So 2 months later, I had a second surgery to have the tube removed. And at that point, he told me, you're probably going to have difficulty getting pregnant on your own because you only have one tube. And in the back of my mind, I was kind of like, that's silly. I'm not. But the truth is, I realized much later, I really internalized that and took that to heart. Because the doctor is supposed to know. So I still said we're going to go try on our own for a little bit. And we did for just probably 3 months again. Then we came back and tried 2 more rounds of IUI, neither of which produced enough eggs to do anything with. It was just the same one egg that I would have produced on my own. So that was really disappointing. And at the same sort of as we were wrapping that up, we learned that my husband was being transferred for work. So I said, okay, well, we're going to just take a break now and we're going to enjoy our last 6 months here and we're going to go get settled there. And, maybe I'll come back to it later. So 6, 7 months later, when we were kind of settled, I did come back to it, but I decided I was going to do it in a very different way. I was not interested in doing more IUI, obviously, and I was not really interested in trying IVF at that point. So I found a woman who did Mayan abdominal massage, which is a massage technique that focuses on aligning your uterus and your fallopian tubes and your ovaries, which seemed logically like a good idea since I only had one tube. Let's make sure everything else is lined up. And she did, I call it like herbalism light. She did a few little things, but not full on teas and stuff like that. And a little bit of acupuncture. And I stayed with her for a little bit. But I also then found a hypnosis practitioner and started seeing her to do hypnosis, which for those of you who've never done it and hear the word and just think of like what you see on stage, I will tell you that it's nothing like that. And it is, in fact, amazing and so relaxing. And then right at the 6 month mark, sort of this new go round, I started seeing an acupuncturist. And at the 7 month mark, I got pregnant. And that was my first child. And I know this is such a long story, especially the way I'm telling it, but it goes on. Once I started getting my period again, when my first child was 13 months, my husband was like, you know what? It took us so long to get the first one. We should start now on the second one. So we did, and I got pregnant immediately. And then like a week and a half later, I miscarried it. And it not a big deal for me. I know there's a whole range of experiences with miscarriage, but it was not a thing for me. And I thought, well, it happened so quickly, it will happen again really quickly. Fast forward 14 months and still nothing. And I'd been back to the doctor and we'd run more blood work and everything was still fine. And one day I wish I could remember back to what it was that sort of caused the realization, but I just had this moment of, wait, you're not doing any of the relaxation exercises, any of the meditation, any of the visualization that you were doing before you got pregnant the first time. So I started it immediately and I was pregnant the next cycle.
Wow.
And that was kid number 2. And then a few years later, when we decided we wanted one more, I started doing all of that before we were ready to try. And I got pregnant first shot, you know, out of the bag.
Out of the gate.
Out of the gate. Out of the bag. I don't know.
Whatever you want to say there.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, that was like a big realization of, so the mind piece, the mindfulness, the mindset, the relaxation, all of that matters in such a huge way that we really don't talk about and focus on. And that was when I decided, all right, I'm going to pivot from personal training and fitness and I'm going to move into this.
Well, it's just like we talk about, the mindset makes, like, you manifest it. So if you could just change your negative mindset into a positive, just watch what could happen. Well, if you take an approach with your body and you're working on the things inside to kind of work together and give you that peace that you're not just taking medicine, you're not just seeing every doctor on the planet, you're resting, you're getting centered. Why wouldn't it work? It's an option that maybe someone today is listening and going, we've done IUI and we've even kind of done an IVS and nothing's working.
Yeah.
What would you say to them today with your approach?
So, I would say a lot of things, because first, let me just acknowledge that I know I've been extraordinarily lucky and that not everybody's story will end this way, and that mindfulness itself isn't necessarily the answer for everyone. There are many of you out there who, yes, with just some relaxation and other techniques, like real relaxation, not going to Mexico and sitting on a beach, um, which is lovely and great. And I wish we could all do it, but that's not what I'm talking about when I say relaxation. I mean, like, consistent ways to keep your stress levels in check. Um, that won't be enough for everybody. For some, it will. But this works so beautifully in conjunction with any of the traditional medical treatments. If you need an IUI, if you need to do IVF, those things in and of themselves, on top of and beyond the actual fertility problems, those things are horribly stressful. And the more you can control your body's reaction to that stress, the more that you can keep yourself at some sort of baseline, the better your body will respond to the medications, the better your body will do what you're hoping and asking it to do. So if you've been unsuccessful in the past and you have, and you've been given a diagnosis of unexplained infertility, I would certainly explore a mindfulness avenue. And if you know that there is an issue that requires that you use a medical intervention, then I would add this in. And there's no one size fits all. There are so many different ways to come at this, through meditation, through yoga, through journaling, through coaching. It's just so important that you find your thing.
Well, you're right. I mean, because if at least you're not saying one size does fit all.
Absolutely
You've
not.
been, and in your story, you've done things and it didn't work, so you found another avenue. I've heard, in my own journey, I'm a mom of many, and my problem being a young mom at the time, I could get pregnant, but then I would have complications staying pregnant, and they could not explain it. Because after you're pregnant, they don't go and start doing research because you're pregnant. It's a
Right.
safety thing. So it wasn't until baby 3 that came premature that they were like, there's a reason why your body's thinking you should give birth way before you're supposed to. And it was low progesterone. And so by baby 4, they were like, okay, you got to start taking injections by week 12. and then we'll start tapering it off the closer you get to your due date. At the time when you're young and naive, you don't understand those things. So you start reading and like, okay, you're taking a drug, it's supposed to stop. Okay, great. So baby 4, baby 5, and baby 6 were all born in their 38 to 40 week, but not a day after the due date. Because then there can be, high risk. I got
Okay.
older. I was in my 30s by my last one. And when you're a 30-year-old mom versus an 18-year-old mom, there's a lot of learning that goes into there.
Yeah.
And so right now, same people, you could have a baby and then years later down the road, you can't get pregnant again. And you're like, why? I had the first one. And people are like, well, you got one, And so when I couldn't keep a baby for a while, like, oh, you've got plenty, stop trying. It's your limit. And I'm like, that's not really the greatest advice on the planet to say to someone that feels like they want another baby. So I was thankful in my journey that the doctors and the holistic approach that I took towards it kept my babies baking to where they're healthy. And even my preemie, who came out as early as he did, turned into a really healthy young man. So it all works out in some ways.
Yeah.
But I had to find it what works for me and to listen to the doctor that kind of made sense. It actually was a nurse practitioner who found it, who found that my progesterone was so low that's why I was miscarrying, or that's why I was having preemies. And she was the one that came in and says, well, I think it's this. And the doctor agreed with her. And so fast forward to my journey, I have 6 healthy, children, and I had 3 miscarriages. Each miscarriage taught me I needed to listen to my body and what it's doing. I've had doctors that really dismissed me, who thought it was all whatever.
Yeah.
And so it works in that favor. So when they're in your own journey and say they have had miscarriages or endometriosis, PCOS is what I had. I had PCOS, and I loved being pregnant, which is why I think I had 6 kids, because I could not stand my cycles. I already had that uterus cervix hostility environment when they did that test. They were like, oh, I don't even know how she got pregnant the first time. What do you say to those that are in that journey right now, trying to get into parenthood, or maybe they're already into parenthood and now they're struggling completing their family? What are some things that you would say to them in that journey?
So I would say many of the same things that I would say to somebody who's dealing with primary infertility. First off, make sure that you like your doctor.
Yeah.
Just even listening to you talk, Mel, it's really important that you feel like your doctor is your partner and that they are listening to you. I cannot tell you how many women I have spoken to who have talked about seeing a doctor that they knew was not a particularly good fit. And they didn't ever feel particularly comfortable or seen or heard. But for whatever reason, because maybe the doctor had a reputation or because they didn't know where else to go, they stuck with it until something happened, could be anything, but something happened and they ended up switching doctors. And that was enough right there, because a different set of eyes and a different set of mannerisms and understanding and all of that can sometimes make a world of difference. So even if you are seeing the doctor in your area who has the finest reputation, if you can't stand the person, if you never want to go to your appointments, I would say find somebody else. I would also say that if you're struggling for a second time, know that you're not alone. The number of women dealing with secondary infertility is huge and growing as well.
It was more than I realized.
And yeah, it's so much more. And you are misunderstood. You are the group that the primary infertility ladies love to hate. Because, my pain is surely more than your pain, but
The comparison thing, yep.
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And so many of these same things. If you have not incorporated mindfulness, try it, because now you're dealing with even a different stress factor, which is the child you already have. Because love them though we do, they are stressful. to deal
Yeah.
with.
Every single one of them, always. One to whenever.
Yeah. So there's that's piled on top of all the other stressors that come with all of this. Um so yes, find a good doctor, find the support you need, find the mindfulness that you need, the things you can do to keep yourself feeling okay. The things that keep you from feeling like you're in a hole is
Mm.
one of the ways that I always used to think about it. I always felt like I was in a hole. And the challenge is to kind of dig yourself out so that you can be above ground for your journey, if you will.
Yeah, the journey into parenting, because just getting pregnant is part of it, and then you
Mhm.
got to, parenthood the rest of the time.
Yeah.
I remember. I mean, my journey was, over a decade ago for my last one. And once you become a multiple birth family, people don't know your journey behind the scenes. They don't know what it took to get pregnant. They don't know, the risk involved and stuff. So I think I kept quiet after baby number 3. And at that point, I just kept it to myself or my husband. And that was husband number 2. I'll tell this brief so the audience know just how important it is to understand if you're fit with your doctor, does it make sense? If it feels hostile or they're just bullying you into making decisions, then just pick up your purse and go. Because I wish I had done that. So how did you and your husband support each other in this journey? Because it took overall, I didn't quite catch it to the
It
first
was
baby.
six
How many?
from the time we started till the time our first son was born, it was 7 years.
That's a lot of years. So
It's a
how
lot of
did y'all
years.
make that through? Like, how did y'all go through that together?
So it is tough. Uh, you know, communication styles our communication styles are different. Um, as is the case with many couples. And all I could talk about, think about, was this journey and trying to get to a baby. And my husband he was very involved and extremely supportive. And and he would be angry to know that I thought anything different, which I don't. But it wasn't always enough. There were moments where I felt like I needed more, and he just wasn't in the same place, because it is in large part different for the partner who is not trying to get pregnant, because
Mhm.
it's not their body. It's not their body that isn't doing the thing that it's supposed to do. It's not their body that's taking all the drugs and having all the tests. And so it's definitely different, but for a lot of women who are struggling, that makes it a real challenge. And so I always tell people, like, that's part of my function. That's why I'm here, because your partner may not want to talk about it anymore. Your mother may not have any idea what to say or may continually say the wrong thing. All your friends might have babies and you want nothing to do with them right now. So that's where you come to look for extra support. Somebody else who understands what it is that you're going through, who you can lean on a little bit.
Wow. What a value that is, because you're right. And we're in the age of instantaneous, gratification. And so everyone has their threshold where they don't want to talk about it no more. But
Mhm.
you do, because you're living it. It's your body, it's your life. You want the baby. And your partner does. Don't
Sure.
misunderstand me there. But they're also, if they're a different wavelength or they think differently or they process things differently, then they also have their own threshold. Like, and so it's such a resource that you provide there, that even in my journeys, I would have loved, because you would have judged me. Oh, okay, you already have 3 kids. Why are we here? And I'm like, no, my family is not complete yet. We do want number 4, but there's an issue. We've carried a few times, but I'm still young and I still can do this. So many people were telling me, no, you got 3.
It's I mean,
You got 3.
it's a common
And I
refrain.
I understood it too. I understood it too.
Yeah,
But I
but
did have
until it's
3.
you feeling what you're feeling. Like a lot of people really they just don't get it. They just don't get it.
Yeah.
And
And there, and it's the comparison thing too. It's just like, well, they only wanted 2 kids and they're happy and content. Why can't I be happy and content with 3? And I would always just tell them, because it's not your life.
yeah.
You're not living my life. I'm not living your life. I don't care if you're content at 1 or 8. I don't have any judgment. But for me and myself and my family, we're not complete yet. So we're going to figure this out. And we did, thankfully. But I didn't have a resource like what you provide. So what else in this mindfulness and stuff that you provide for your clients?
So I teach first and foremost, like if you were to come to me, the first thing we would do at a session is go through some techniques that you can use immediately on your own. Some simple breathing techniques, a couple of simple visualization techniques, because my primary goal at an initial meeting always is to help you bring your stress level down quickly. Um, because a lot of times when people come to me, it's almost sort of like a last resort. Like I've done everything that I can think of, and now I'm going to try this, in conjunction maybe with whatever else I'm trying. But I've had people come to me, I think this is probably going to be our last IVF cycle. We really have to make it count. So help me. Um, so that's crucial, is teaching techniques that are simple enough for someone to do on their own. Some that are even, there are a lot of great breathing techniques that are just super subtle, and you can just do them standing in line at the grocery store and nobody's going to know that you're doing it. Even things you can do at work that people won't notice, but you'll feel better. Then depending, because everybody comes to me with different things, there are lots of different things we look at, but often we talk about fears, common fears and you'd be surprised how much fear can really sort of inhibit the body, because there's a connection and your mind's like, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, and your body goes, then maybe I shouldn't. But some common fears include changing body. I'm afraid of what's going to happen to my body when I get pregnant. I'm worried about actually giving birth to a child and what that's going to feel like. I am worried about how my relationship with my partner might change. And a big one often is, my mother was not a very good mother, and I am concerned that I am going to be a mother like my mother was.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some things to work through. One thing that I often find is really helpful is helping women create sort of a vision for themselves for what life would be like if they don't ever have the child that they are hoping for.
Mm.
Not ever trying to change anybody's mind. It's not in that sense. It's letting them see a glimpse of the good that they would have in their life, even if they don't have a child, because it's hard to see that. And a lot of us who go through this can't imagine my life. This will ruin my life if I can't have this child.
That tunnel vision.
Yeah.
You can't see past it. Yeah.
You can't see past it. And wow, what a horrible feeling that my life is going to be over. Like there's no way to recover from this. It's not true. And for everybody that I work with, once we start talking about it, they're able to see, okay, well, I would be able to do this, or maybe I'd be interested in doing that. And so just noticing some possibilities goes a really long way to taking some pressure off. So that it doesn't feel like all your eggs necessarily, no pun intended, are in one basket.
I love that you touched on that, because I had a friend of mine, and she was a beautiful person, and she was married to a gentleman, and they had struggled, and he was very pessimistic about it, and she took on his fear, and their marriage ended because they could never get into that in sync part of it all. And she remarried about, about 18 months later after that, and it was about 3 weeks into that newlywed phase that she became pregnant. No questions. All her testing prior had come out of great, but they couldn't get pregnant. And I felt like when we were, connecting and stuff like that, it was his negativeness, his unwillingness and stuff. It kind of just prevented things, but stress in her body. Like she knew deep down he didn't want to be a dad, or didn't want to be a dad at that time, or or whatever. And anything that happened, he would never go and do things more than just that doctor's appointment with her.
Mhm.
And when she finally had enough, I mean, and seeing her now with her family, it's a pretty large family now, and she talks about it every now and then. She goes, I think the negative of that fear I just kept with myself and couldn't see myself having a family with him. And at the end of the day, you kind of know at that point. But I like that you mentioned that we can take on fears that we don't really know we did until we start talking in a safe place for them. Because there would be no way I would never be able to tell to my husband, I just don't think you want a kid. I
Yeah.
had that boldness at that point. But I'm proud of her to this day, and seeing her life happen the way it did going forth, because she had the family with the right gentleman that she has them with. But and the big fear is not wanting to be like your parent, whether it's a mom or a dad. That's got to be hard to process before it all happens. Internal baggage, that can
Mhm.
affect so many more things than just our mindset. Well, we've had some great stuff in here. I want to go into how it got started for you, where you knew you needed to become what you are now with what you experienced.
So the big aha moment for me really was when I got pregnant with my second child after going back and starting up with the meditation and the visualization again. Because it really, I had that miscarriage and thought, well, for sure, that was so easy. I'll be pregnant again in a hot second. And so much time went by, and we were really questioning, like, okay, well, maybe we're not going to have a second kid. And I mean, I guess okay, but I feel like that can't possibly be the case, and I don't really want that to be the case. And so when I started in with the mindfulness again and got pregnant so quickly, I was like, oh, okay, I see it now. It should have been really clear, but it wasn't, and now I really get it. And so then sort of the proof for me was with the third one, when I tried it again with the mindfulness, and it happened immediately. Then I was like, okay, for sure. It was not a fluke, it's a thing. And the more I talk to people and the more stories I hear, um the more it's like obvious that it makes such a tremendous difference. Your mind is wildly powerful, and your body is connected to it, and so it's like your mind is steering the boat here. And if you are stressed out, if you have negative thoughts, the body responds physiologically. Stress causes a whole change in hormones, and uh, prioritizes the most important bodily functions, like digestion. And reproduction is all the way at the bottom of the list of necessary things. And so it shuts down immediately. It's like the first thing to go when you're under a lot of chronic stress.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you think back logically to when we were living in the wild, back, in caveman days, if you will, if there isn't enough food, because let's say there's been a drought over the summer and there isn't enough food, that's stressful. That's a form of stress for your body. And it's your body shuts it down because it recognizes this is not a good environment to have to feed extra. It's not safe, is what your body registers. There are lions all around. This isn't safe.
Yeah.
Um, I can't find a good place to settle down. I've been walking for months trying to find a new place to settle. Not safe. Not a good time to have a baby. All of that has just been carried forward. Our world is entirely different,
Mhm.
but our body is the same as it was. And so we now live in a super stressful time with the expectation that everything we want we can get immediately. Amazon will bring you whatever you want in 24 hours, and social media perpetuates a lot of these sort of instant gratifications. I can't even think of the word I'm looking for, but the social media portrayal of everything as perfect and wonderful.
Oh yeah, utopia. Yeah,
Yeah,
facade. Yeah.
all of that gets internalized. You don't know the people you're watching on social media from Adam, but if you follow them and you look at enough of their stuff, you start to think, I totally know them and their life is so beautiful and mine not so much. But we have no idea what's going on in the backstory there, in the background. Um, so that's stressful. We are always running, we are always connected, we are always doing. We do not prioritize rest in any way. Rest, in fact, is often seen as a negative, but the body needs that, the mind needs that. So all of these things contribute to the rising rates of infertility that we're seeing.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I agree with you there. Just because life looks easier on the
On the gram.
advancements, technology advancements, and everything like that, doesn't mean it really ever is. Sometimes I wish we can go back to the good old days. My kids probably would hate it though. No Wi-Fi.
Yep.
So, well, I thank you for your time with your specialty and everything like that. How do they reach out to you if they want to become a client of yours or to learn more of what you do from start to finish?
Absolutely. So the best place to learn more about what I do is to head over to my website, which is lilyandbfertility.com. And I think Mel, you'll probably put all this in the show notes. Yeah.
I will do so.
So there's a lot of great information on there, lots of blog posts. If you're so inclined, you can sign up. You can sign up to receive my little freebie, which is, I call it the Fertility Mindset Bundle. It's a guided meditation. It's 2 journaling exercises and some affirmation cards.
Oh, awesome.
Yep. And you can find me on Instagram and I'm on LinkedIn. And those are really the best ways to get in touch with me.
When they become a client of yours, do you just stay with them until the moment they're pregnant, or do you stay with through the whole process?
It depends. Every woman is different. Some women come in, do 6 sessions and leave and I never hear from them again. Others do 6 sessions and come back from time to time, or at least check in via email. And some women do like 1 session now and then they wait many months and they come back and do another session, and so it's very fluid.
Fluid. Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. With busy schedules and how ebbs and flows,
Yeah.
we can say. Well, we're gonna wrap up here with a little fun. Ready?
Okay.
Okay. So, what do you do besides being mindful and all this stuff? What do you do to unplug?
I play tennis. I
Tennis.
play tennis. Yep.
You good at it?
I'm I'm not bad. I am not a beginner. I've been playing most of my life.
I love that. I probably could not play tennis to save you, but at least if you were on my team, we would be okay. Well, for the listeners listening in and everything like that, what would you tell them today if they are kind of in that despair, losing hope, knowing they need a pivot and they don't know really what's next for them, but they really deep down know to pivot? What would you tell them?
I would tell them to reach out to someone. I would love it if you'd reach out to me, but I'm not the only place to reach out. Um, but you need to find somebody to talk to, because this is the sort of journey that we tend to keep to ourselves. It's not something that we like to talk about with our friends and family, but it's a really big thing and it
Mm.
needs more than just you and your partner really. It's like too heavy for just a
that's
few
good.
people.
Too heavy of a load. Yep.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, I thank you for your time, Becky. Again, on the show notes, I'll put how to reach her. Yeah, and then again, her business company. And if you want to be a client of hers, definitely reach out. I thank you for this time. For someone that didn't necessarily struggle from infertility, I thought your story was fascinating that this exists and it needs to be known of, because I do have a big circle of women from all ages. One thing I want to type on real quick is that motherhood, really can be happening from, really young to still women in their 40s and stuff. And so when we're struggling to complete our family, regardless of our age, again, it's key that you have the right doctor. It's key that you're not just lumping it on to you and your spouse. Get an extra person. And if it's Becky or what Becky does, that now light bulb goes off. Well, great. That's what this podcast is for, is to bring people like Becky all over to just talk about what they do in her own journey. She's lived it, so she kind of knows what she's talking about there, and it gave her 3 wonderful children. So, Becky, I thank you for your time today. It's been great to unplug.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful chatting with you.